Hello everybody, Ninjo X again. Welcome to a brand new Enlightened Vlogs, the very first of the weekly installment of this show. Next vlog, you'll be getting something special. But for this one, it's going to be the same old thing. Don't worry about it. It'll be great. I hope. Maybe worry. So, today I was thinking about something that my brother said to me over the holiday break. I almost never see my brother. And I was wondering how true it really rang. I'm the type of person that I don't like to solely fit into any one category. I like to believe that I'm somewhere in between. More balanced, if you will. But he called me a hipster. And I didn't really know what that was. I'd heard the word several times, but I've gotten to think about it. Am I a hipster? Is that what I am? Well, what is a hipster? To me, a hipster is somebody who's trapped in the trends of yesterday. Which, in a sense, I am very much for the older trends. Especially when it comes to gaming. I would much rather play the same platformer or the same RPG than move on and play a new FPS game, which is all the rage, or a new open world game, which honestly, most of them just aren't for me. I'm going to tell you guys a little bit of something about my opinions on that regard. This is going to be a very opinionated vlog. And it's going to be less open-ended than some of the others, where I'm going to actually state my opinions on this. For me, I grew up in the 90s. During the 90s was a boom to the gaming industry, the likes of which may never be seen again. Where at-home video consoles were having such success that they were driving out of business the arcades of old. Which is a shame because, well, it is and it isn't. It's a shame in the sense that it cost people their jobs, but it's good for the gaming industry because it allowed new types of games to take center stage, opposed to the old arcade styles of games, which were very limited. Because let's face it, you couldn't save a game file at an arcade and go back and play it again later. At least not with any arcade game I've ever heard of. And so you could only get so far as your endurance would allow you to get. Exploration was something that didn't really exist. And thus was born, as we entered into the realm of 3D gaming, the collectathon platformer. Mario 64 and Banjo-Kazooie taking center stage, with other icons such as Spyro being right behind them. Collectathon platformers allowed a semi-engaging story, brilliant atmospheres, and encouraged a certain degree of exploration without being completely confounding. Well, this is the hipster side of me. I prefer that game to the open world style game. Because with a collectathon, especially a collectathon platformer, there are set goals. You know what you're going to find within reason in a level. In any given level of Banjo-Kazooie, you're going to find 10 jigsaw pieces, 100 notes, 5 Jinjos that will give you one of the 10 jigsaw pieces, a witchy switch, 2 empty honeycomb pieces, an assortment of other power-up and buff items, a couple Mumbo tokens, and that's pretty much it. A couple of slight variants to mix things up. With an open world type of game like a Skyrim or others, you don't really have that. It's a great big massive realistic world for you to explore But there's no real sense of direction. And the story-driven plots usually aren't all that good. Certainly not compared to the RPGs of old. But in a lot of ways, I'm also not a hipster. I do like newer games, especially newer games that follow the older trends. Like, I'm a huge fan of the Donkey Kong Country Returns series. Personally, I'm saving up to get a Wii U as my next console so that I can finally play Donkey Kong Country Returns Tropical Freeze, which looks fantastic, as well as Pikmin 3, the new Zelda, the new Star Fox. Now, a lot of people accuse me of attacking FPS-style games. I'll be perfectly honest. I prefer the third-person format to the first-person. I just feel like it's better. I feel like it plays better and it handles better. I feel like the first-person shooter format is kind of dated. And that people just keep on kind of trying to bring it to life because, quite honestly, it's easier. It's easier to make a game where you don't have to animate the character model. You ever thought about that? But that doesn't mean that all FPS games are like that all FPS games are shortcuts. The Metroid Prime series certainly wasn't. Most of Valve's games aren't. Some of the early Bungie games. And a few others. But I don't tend to follow that trend. That doesn't necessarily make me a hipster because at the same time, one thing a hipster cannot be is an innovator. And there are retro things that I don't necessarily go for. For example, I know the indie scene is huge right now, especially among retro gamers. And while I very much respect what the indie scene is doing, and a lot of their games I think are fantastic or would be fantastic if I'd played them, because to be perfectly honest, I haven't really gotten into the indie scene all that much. There are others that I feel like are so overblown, so overrated, because people are so starved for retro 16-bit gaming that they'll buy into anything. Kind of like Star Trek fans back whenever the series, there was only 1.5 seasons of the original Star Trek, to my understanding. And then it was pulled off the air just as it was gaining popularity. A lot of franchises do this. And people wait for so long that they would take anything. And so they'll forgive the huge loopholes and plot holes, and they'll wait for an explanation on the unforgivable, incomparable things. Because they're so anxious for more, so starving, that they'll eat it, even if it's fast food. And I feel like some, but not all, of the indie games fall into this category. Of games that are just trying too hard to be retro. And they're really just massive time wasters. No better than the average mobile game. But we have YouTubers, gamers, really enlightened people fawning over them because they've been so starved for so long that they'll eat anything. But I, for one, refuse. There are indie games that are overrated. There are modern games along the modern trends that are underrated. And vice versa. Just because a game fits into a category doesn't mean it has to conform to the perception of that category. So, in conclusion, am I a hipster? No, I'm not a hipster. I'm Ninjo. I'm the enlightened gamer. It's my duty to walk a fine line between retro and modern. The fact that I haven't released any modern games yet on my channel is purely due to monetary constraints. Monetary constraints that hopefully one day will be resolved. And until that day comes, as always, stay enlightened.